Okay, so we're going to be taking a test on main idea and inferences. I'm recording this, so if you have not been here for the test, you can listen along to the reading. It is somewhat difficult, so you're going to need to listen carefully for the main idea of each paragraph. I will pause, or you can pause the presentation when you get to that point, to think about what is the best subtitle for each of those main ideas in those paragraphs. I have a list of those main ideas here. I'm not going to read through them. I'm actually going to start with the article right away, and we're going to begin. You're going to choose one of these different subtitles or headings for each of the paragraphs. In each of the blanks, you're going to fill them in. Let's begin. Carl Steinmetz's Electrical Genius by Mark Aaron and Teachers Pay Teachers. Jewish American Heritage Month is observed in May of each year. The United States is home to approximately 6 million followers of Judaism, making it one of the largest Jewish communities in the world. Jewish American Heritage Month is a way to celebrate the achievements and contributions of Jewish Americans in the history and development of the United States. Americans of Jewish descent have been successful in many fields and aspects of life for over 300 years. They include people like Barbra Streisand, Steven Spielberg, Ralph Lauren, Albert Einstein, and many, many more. This is the story of one of the greatest, but lesser known, Jewish Americans in history. The 24-year-old Jewish man was little, far less than 5 feet tall. His back was twisted in a hump and his head was too large for his body. He had been teased mercilessly as a child about his appearance. As Carl August Rudolph Steinmetz, 1865 to 1923, stood patiently in a line of immigrants waiting for permission to enter the United States, he knew he was in trouble. He had no money, no job, and spoke no English. On the verge of being sent to the detention pen and back to Germany, Carl saw a Jewish friend who spoke English well. The man spoke on his behalf and convinced the immigration officers to let the tiny man back into line and into America. It was June 1889. So here's our first subtitle. Don't write it in yet. You're going to look at the section after we read this next section. You're going to place the correct subtitle from the screen. The little man, who had studied mathematics and research in Germany, asked everywhere for work as an electrician. No one would give him a job. He looked too weak to do a hard day's work. Finally, the owner of a factory, Rudolf Eckemeyer, agreed to meet him. Eckemeyer liked Steinmetz at once and gave him a job. The factory manufactured hat-making machines invented by Eckemeyer, but the inventor was now interested in building a large electric motor. However, all of the models he made became overheated. He knew that the trouble came from the effect of magnetism on the motor's iron core, but he did not know how to avoid the trouble. Steinmetz was happy to tackle the problem. Unlike Thomas Edison, he did not work with models. His only tools were pencil, paper, and his mind. Hour after hour, he sat cross-legged in his chair, going over all the known facts about magnetism. He filled the pages with his figuring. In 2 years, he worked out the mathematical law Eckemeyer needed. At a meeting of electrical engineers in January 1892, he read part of his report. His high, thin voice stumbled over English words, but his listeners were thrilled. Please pause the video and place the best subtitle for paragraph 1 that you see on the screen. Which subtitle best fits the main idea? Please look at the list and choose the subtitle or the heading that you think best matches the main idea of the first paragraph. Now remember, if you fill in the blank there and you later change your mind because you think you found a better match for that heading, you can always go back and change your answer. Just place the best answer you can guess for the first one in now. If you decide to change it because you find a better fit for, say, any of these headings, you can always go back and change your answer later. The first one will be the hardest. You should have written something in. I'm going to move on to paragraph 2. You can always go back and fix these later if you want to reread it on your own. Paragraph 2. Don't write the subtitle yet because we haven't read it. Read along with me, please, and then choose. Steinmetz was then just 27 years old. Famous as an electrical engineer, he was also becoming known as a warm-hearted, unusual character. One bitter winter day, a factory engineer went to Steinmetz's small laboratory to discuss a problem. He found the little scientist working in an overcoat, fur cap, and boots, his hands blue with cold. The engineer could not resist asking, "Mr. Steinmetz, why don't you build a fire in your stove?" Steinmetz smiled. "Well," he said, "a mouse had some babies in there, and they are not yet old enough to move." While he worked for Eckemeyer, the General Electric Company learned of his genius. They offered him an important job with his own big laboratory. The little man was delighted. Then, a week later, he said he could not accept the offer. Steinmetz told General Electric that Mr. Eckemeyer had given him a job when no one else would and still needed him. "If you offered me 10 times as much money, it would mean nothing. It is my duty to stay here with him," was Steinmetz's answer. Soon afterwards, GE bought the entire Eckemeyer company and moved Steinmetz to its new plant in Schenectady, New York. It was the only way to get it. Pause. And then I would like you to go through and say which of the headings best fits for paragraph 2. Write it in. Make your best guess. If you want to change it later, you always could. Look at the multiple choice on the screen. Which of these would be the best description? Make your best choice. Just jot down your best guess, and then we're going to continue on. If you want to go back and change it later because you find a better fit, you can go ahead and do that. Which heading makes the most sense with that main idea? Number 3. After we read paragraph 3, and as we read it, pay attention to the headings and see which one makes the most sense. You should be kind of eliminating them as we go. Madison, head up. Soon after arriving in Schenectady, Steinmetz set the electrical industry forward in giant strides. At that time, electricity was used only as direct current, flowing in one direction. It had one great drawback. It could not be sent more than 3 miles from the generator that supplied the power. This limited the spread of electricity throughout the country. Steinmetz thought the problem, I skipped Mark Aaron, Teachers Pay Teachers. Steinmetz thought the problem could be solved by using an alternating current flowing back and forth, first in one direction and then in the other. But no one knew how to build machinery to make it and the wires to carry it. Alternating current changes direction fast, usually 120 times per second. With each change, its power grows from nothing to full strength. To calculate its changing force had seemed impossible. Steinmetz solved the problem. His theory was so difficult that few understood it. Would it work? In 1894 at Niagara Falls, GE built an alternating current generator to see if electricity could be sent to Buffalo, which was 26 miles away. When the switch was thrown, the wires sang, and for the first time a great city had electricity sent from far away. Not long afterward, power was traveling thousands of miles across the continent, and the electrification of the nation had begun. Go ahead and choose the best heading and write it above paragraph 3. What best matches the main idea of that paragraph? Think about main idea, keywords you saw. What matches that main idea best?